Hey everyone, JL here, and welcome back to Bridge the Divide, where I examine irrational beliefs, the irrational behaviors that follow, and how we, with education, rationality, and reason, can bridge the societal divides that they create. I'll be blunt. Things are not alright. With the war going on between Russia and Ukraine, China angling at Taiwan, global markets in turmoil, and the existential threat of climate change, just to name a few, you'd think that the human species currently has enough on its plate. But leave it to Christianity to forego all of those issues in favor of lashing out at the LGBTQ community once again. There has been a disturbing amount of anti-LGBTQ directives and bills coming out of local governments lately. In Florida, Roman Catholic Governor Ron DeSantis, who was recently recorded expressing this opinion.
You do not have to wear those masks. I mean, please take them off. Honestly, it's not doing anything, and we got to stop with this COVID theater. So if you want to wear it, fine, but this is ridiculous.
Well, he appears ready to sign into law a bill that would ban classroom instruction or communication about sexual orientation and gender identity with kids in kindergarten through third grade, essentially ages 3 through 9. But it also leaves the door open for older grades if the instruction is not deemed age appropriate. It also gives parents the right to sue the school if they feel the procedures or instruction infringes upon their right to make decisions regarding the control and upbringing of their children. With such vague terminology, anyone can plainly see that this could possibly open up schools to further litigation beyond the initial intention. I'm looking at you, fundamental creationists. House Bill 1557, or the Parental Rights in Education Bill, or the Don't Say Gay Bill as its critics have called it, has been derided across the board. Critics have expressed that if the legislation were to become law, it could be used to unfairly target LGBTQ youth and their families. Well, that bill just passed the Florida Senate and is heading straight to the desk of the deeply homophobic Ron DeSantis, who is fully expected to sign it into law. In Oklahoma, Pentecostal Representative Jim Olson, who has been heavily criticized for previous comments on both slavery and abortion, authored House Bill 2973. HB 2973, or the Parental and Family Rights in Counseling Protection Act, would essentially protect the dangerous and pseudoscientific practice of conversion therapy from ever being banned in the state. I recently spoke with my representative, Judd Strom, on a live stream, and he immediately singled out the vague terminology and unconstitutional nature of the bill. Despite extreme pushback from the LGBTQ community, the Trevor Project, psychologists, and other lawmakers who instantly recognized the dangerous door that this bill would open, the bill recently passed the House. It will now move to the House floor. Bills like this are popping up across the nation. For example, Iowa has 19, Arizona has 18, Tennessee has 31. But nowhere is the fight against LGBTQ more clear than it is in Texas. And at the head of that snake is Governor Greg Abbott. Abbott, a Roman Catholic and notorious figure in Texas politics, is well known for a number of highly controversial actions. These include his overwhelming denial of climate change, voter suppression efforts, support of guns in schools, attacking the homeless, propagating Jade Helm 15 conspiracies, anti-immigration, gerrymandering, abortion bounties, and his botched handling of both the pandemic and Texas's energy infrastructure. But most egregious of all have been his anti-LGBTQ positions. In 2014, Abbott defended Texas's ban on same-sex marriages, despite being ruled unconstitutional by a federal court. He openly condemned the Supreme Court ruling in Obergefell v. Hodges and filed a lawsuit to stop same-sex spouses of city employees from being covered by benefit policies. In 2015, he signed the Pastor Protection Act, which allows pastors to refuse to marry couples if it violates their beliefs. He repeated that sentiment in 2017 when he signed legislation that allows adoption agencies to refuse adoption services to same-sex couples based on religious grounds. He also had the LGBTQ Youth Resources Information and Suicide Prevention Hotline removed from the Texas Child Welfare Agency's website in 2021. And most recently, he issued a directive to Texas-based agencies to treat gender-affirming medical therapies such as puberty blockers and hormone treatments for transgender youths as child abuse. I think it's safe to say that Greg Abbott has a real problem with the LGBTQ community. And I would hazard that the reason for this sudden and extreme push for anti-LGBTQ directives is a result of Texas Republicans slowly losing ground. Historically narrow outcomes in local, Senate, and presidential elections have indicated that Texas is turning purple. And now Abbott is up for re-election this year, so what better time for him to grandstand to his conservative Christian base by showing just how hard he is on the LGBTQ community, while at the same time making the state virtually unbearable to live in for voters who oppose him. Because after all, if those that would vote against him all leave, then his permanent position as governor is pretty much secured. So here we are, once again, in the middle of a shitstorm where the LGBTQ community is being openly attacked at the political level. And once again, we are forced to justify our very existence and our desperate need for equal rights, protections, and representation. So the question is asked, what the hell can we actually do about it? And the answers are usually the same. We could use our collective voting power to get representatives who back faith-based legislation out of office. Though gerrymandering and voter suppression efforts have made that an uphill battle that requires a large coordinated effort. Individuals can call their local representatives and voice their opposition to such bills. But ultimately that's up to the individual. Lawmakers aren't in the office 24/7, and sometimes they don't even pick up the phone. We as the people could directly petition the president, but that also takes a large coordinated effort, and there's the whole 10th Amendment to consider. And of course, people could just sue the state, dragging such measures directly into court. But that action requires money and time, and let's face facts, the average American can't afford to take time off work for basic sleep. The banks don't care about what you believe. They want that mortgage payment. There is, however, a tactic that I think possibly could be rather effective. It would also take a lot of stomach because the social consequences have the potential to be extreme. It is a fact that every one of these anti-LGBTQ bills and directives have been authored and backed by followers of Christianity. And given Christianity's track record when it comes to the LGBTQ community, I think it's safe to say that these are not just shots across the bow. I think it's safe to say that once again, Christianity has declared open war against the LGBTQ community. And yes, I said Christianity, as in the whole of it. I know, many will immediately clap back at that statement, but hear me out. The opinion will likely be that I should not lump the majority of Christianity in with what they themselves see as the misguided few. But therein lies the problem. The misguided few are still believers. They go to church, they tithe, they believe themselves to be devout Christians. And despite the majority opinion, they don't see themselves as extremists. In fact, they see other Christians as being too soft or lukewarm. And these people have clawed their way into positions of legislative power. And while I acknowledge that there are many Christian-backed efforts to protect the LGBTQ community from discrimination and persecution, I would also propose that Christianity is doing little to nothing when it comes to openly rebuking the unconstitutional insanity that is taking place in this nation. That allied Christians would openly preach Matthew 18:15 and 1 Timothy 5:20 and then choose to remain silent while fellow LGBTQ believers' civil rights are being trampled is honestly just cowardice. Imagine what could be accomplished if the grand majority of Christianity that actually supports the LGBTQ community put that support into direct action by openly rebuking those that would seek to do harm to their fellow believers. Imagine if the majority of Christians actually pushed their representatives to support bills that would mend societal divides instead of creating them. Prime examples of this would include the Equal Rights Amendment, universal health care, infrastructure support, voting rights, immigration reform, climate change, separation of church and state, abolishing the private prison sector, establishing term limits, getting dark money out of politics, education reform, and homelessness. There are so many fights that desperately need our attention, we can no longer afford to create problems just so politicians can secure their re-elections. And with so much energy going towards improvement, there would be little opportunity left for fundamentalist politicians to waste local and federal resources and taxpayer money in efforts to tear us apart in the name of the embittered few. A line must be drawn, because that fear of interfaith division that keeps allied Christians silent will inevitably cost people their lives. More needs to be done. More can be done, and we need our allies to stand with us more than ever before. Because if you are a Christian and you choose to remain silent while your fellow LGBTQ believers are being openly attacked for who they are, then you're really just a Christian in name only. You may as well come out of the closet and admit that not only are you an atheist, you're also an asshole. Thank you all for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video, and if you did, please like and subscribe, and be sure to hit that bell for notifications. And be sure to leave a comment below. I really enjoy reading your responses, and those interactions help with the dreaded algorithm. Don't forget, March is Developmental Disability Awareness Month. The beard's a little bit greener. Let's hope I can get it there before April. Oh, and if you love scary movies, be sure to check out me and my filmmaker friends over at the Week in Horror podcast, now in our 3rd season. Once again, thank you all very much for your support. And as always, be safe, be excellent to each other, and together, we can bridge the divide.